I spent the better part of a year and a half talking to guys called Incels. They were labeled Incels, but they don't want to be. They want women. They can't get them because women aren't paying them any attention. And see, those guys got mischaracterized as neckbeard, Cheeto-eating dudes living in their mother's basement. I'm like, no. I know guys who are 40 years old making $160,000 as software engineers who are decent-looking guys, but they have no real social skills, so they're not being prioritized because it keeps getting pushed to the margins, the margins of men. And so I started off talking originally to men, my clients who are in image, and then I also started realizing I had an influx of these incel guys, and I thought that they were guys who were economically unattractive. That's the new word. No, these guys are solidly middle class or upper middle class. I'm like, so what the hell's going on? Does everyone have to have 6 figures and be a superhero? And that's really what you find out when you start asking women, what do you want? And my sales background and my way of probing and active listening and asking questions, I can finally get people to just tell me what you want, not what you'll accept. And what you're finding is from GED to PhD, women are wanting 2 to 3 kids. They don't want to have to work to pay significant bills, or they only want to have to work to pay 20% or less than the family bill. So you still want a provider male. That ain't the way this country's set up. Most people, you need 2 incomes, and then you're saying these guys aren't good enough. I'm talking to a woman in college and I asked her, could you date a plumber? And off the rip, she said no. I'm like, you know how much plumbers make?
Yeah, it's a great job.
But I'm like, but it was the fact that not only do you want a guy, now you're discriminating where his money comes from.
Right.
It's insane, and that's what this show is starting to highlight, starting to break apart a lot of this delusion. Because when you feed an appetite, it's no different than drugs. Let me give you a few hits for free, and then now you're gonna buy it. They've been sold on this idea that you don't want a high-value man, which is 6 different things. It's not just money. What you really want is this lifestyle. But then I asked, well, what are you bringing to the table, and what kind of relationship skills, and what are he's gonna get? That's where the crickets happen. So now it's really started a conversation that's much needed. We have gotten to the point to where, for the most part, we don't even know how to relate to one another. We know how to swipe left, swipe right, hook up, and get on.
Right. It's like the idea of 2 people who are at the relatively early stage in their career. When I think about my mom and dad, they met in college. They probably didn't have jobs or had bad jobs. And that was the dream. When I talked to my parents about what they wanted out of life when they were in their early 20s, they wanted to get married, get a house, have a couple of kids, work on their careers, and build a life together. And they did, and they've been together for 50 fucking years. And it's like, that's a beautiful thing, but it seems like that dream has kind of been lost along the way, where people got so overwhelmed with choice and so overwhelmed with climbing the social ladder and trying to have the best mate that they possibly can, that the idea of building something with their partner has sort of vanished to a lot of people.
Social media, man. It's like now, every young girl that's coming up, they're looking at everybody's Instagram every day. They're seeing everybody with the nice purses. Like, I have a homeboy who gets depressed, like, when he watches other people's Instagram. I can post a picture and he's like, man, my day is messed up. How's your day messed up? Because somebody else, and you know, people spend their money and go their whole life trying to fit in with everybody else when they're not even in the same tax brackets and have the same social status and stuff.
See, and what I try to do is I'm like, I don't judge what people want. I just ask, are you really cut out for that? And do you really want that? Because, you know, you talk about this, social media has definitely, you know, thrown fuel on the fire, where you saying that used to be the American dream. Now, we're talking about women right now. Women they want the outcome, but they don't want the work. And I'm saying, okay, well, at what point do men start making this 6 figures? You know that's at 45 to 55, right? So you're 22. You want a man in it? Oh, now you want him to be young and in the top 10%. And a certain, it's like, to the point to where they're starting to sit back and say, you know what? This is unrealistic and it's unsustainable, because most people aren't there. And even if you can get there from a look standpoint, there's only one. And what are you going to do to get it? So it's a much needed conversation, because, look, even the guys that are up there, they're just normal guys too. I'm like, you do realize their breath stinks in the morning. They have bad habits. You know, driven, motivated guys, you think they're going to be at home to go to the PTA meeting? They're working 12, 14, 16-hour days. You know, being a high-value man's wife is a lonely life. And you got to, not lonely, but you're not going to have everything. And that's, I think, what's happened. We've told everybody you can have everything. You can be whatever you want, and there's no limit. So now you have people thinking they can have it all when they're average. And then that leads to frustration and depression. When your expectation doesn't line up with reality, people get frustrated. Then you got guys who, you know, hearing these women saying, I couldn't date a guy making $50,000. Like, that's an insult. Like, you know, half of the men in this country make $50,000. That's the median income. So I'm like, so what are we ultimately saying to people? That the only way you're worth anything is if you're over here. Okay, well, are you planning on sharing these guys? I mean, what are you planning on doing? Right. And so now it's what it's starting to do is it's starting to make this conversation front and center, because before it was just a one-way conversation, and finally men are starting to. What men want is being heard, because if you were to say what's on your mind, or you would say what's on your mind, it's toxic. It's
narcissist. I get called that here.
Narcissistic, misogynistic, or all these different things. And last night I did a broadcast about alpha females and beta males, and I was like, you know, when a woman says, I'm strong, independent, don't need a man, I need this, I'm like, she can be direct like she wants to, but if you do it, you're demanding, you're this, and I'm like, well, he who makes the goal rules. So, all right, you're accepted over here, accepted over here. And what we're really starting to see is the hypocrisies. And that's what happens in my show. I just question people, and I just let the public decide, what do you think? And now more people are saying, you know what? Maybe I do need to get some therapy. Maybe I need to really, because I push that heavily. You need therapy, And then I think we all can do therapy, whether you come from a troubled background or whether you're A-okay, it's maintenance. And then understanding that life is about people. Success is shared, and making money is a social activity. You want to get something out of somebody, how useful are you to somebody else? Because at the end of the day, you got your PhD and this and that, and you look to the right and you look to the left of you when the pandemic hit and we were on lockdown and you were there by yourself. That was the reality check. Now people are starting to realize, you know what? I may want somebody to walk through this life with me, so somebody can chronicle my life. So when I finally do die, somebody can tell the people who are there what that hash mark in between born date and death date meant. If you don't have anybody next to you, it was almost like you weren't here.
Okay, guys, we want to thank you so much for getting us to 100,000 subscribers right here on the Clips channel. If you want to support, please click that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 200K. Thank you so much.